Ducket Fishing's Wheeler Signature 2.0. You know Jacob Wheeler, Bass Fan's undisputed #1 ranked angler in the world. Jacob is very particular about the rods he fishes, and you can take advantage of this series that Jacob has designed for ducket fishing. Check out the Wheeler Signature 2.0 at ducketfishing.com. We're talking with Stephen Barden, Major League Fishing's Director of Fisheries Management. The main reason for having you today, Stephen, is this Auburn University study that was produced, I think it was at the end of last year or middle of last year. Some really shocking numbers. The study says as much as 45% of the fish weighed at these tournaments suffered mortality, whether it was pre-release mortality or post-release mortality. I'm sure you're familiar with the study. How do you react to that?
Yeah, it's not shocking. The truth is, since the 80s, there's been studies like this that have been occurring across the country, and they just don't reach outside of the scientific community very often. This Auburn study was started, it's a 3-year study, 2022, 2023, finished in 2024. They gave their first presentations at the Bassmaster Classic during the Bass Conservation Summit, and Alabama contacted myself, our tournament officials, and Bassmaster Gene Gilliland, and we had a meeting last fall and looked at these same results. Look, the truth is we've known that mortality of traditional fishing is low. Catch and release fishing is very low. Some studies show that being single digit, some may be 10 to 12%. Whenever it comes to tournaments, we know that there are times of the year when being put in a live well is a stressful event and could cause delayed mortality. The Auburn study used the same scientific method that most have used to look at this. They took fish that were caught either by anglers or electrofishing, and they tagged them with a high value reward tag. So like those yellow noodle tags that you see in the back of fish. You'd say, call this number. Well, they put those out, and then they assessed how many did they get called back. They tagged 800 fish, and they put those out, and they assessed how many did they get called back. They also put in kind of some revolutionary techniques with inserted tags that have a mortality indicator. So when the fish quits moving and is assumed dead, that tag will relay a signal. And they did that on 125 largemouth and 125 Alabama bass. And so they've assessed it in a couple of different methods. And basically, they look at the true mortality of those fish, and they see that it's higher for tournament fish. Now, then, the study wasn't just a single phase study where they just looked at mortality. They also looked at movement of fish. They looked at the age structure of fish, and they looked at the size class of those fish. And what they found was for these Coosa River fisheries, tournaments, no surprise, are targeting larger fish. Larger fish are coming to the weigh-in. That's the goal of the tournament.
Absolutely.
What was kind of interesting, or maybe shocking with this, is that they found that on the Coosa River fish, the tournament anglers were catching larger, younger fish, and predominantly females. And when they go out and they do electrofishing surveys and they do standard sampling, the population that they were capturing were slightly older fish. And so what that tells us is that as anglers are competing in an event, they are catching fish that are younger, more aggressive, faster growing. And then if we bring those fish to the weigh-in and they have a higher chance of mortality, then we're slowly taking those fish out of the genetic pool. And what we're being left with is slower growing fish that are maybe more difficult to capture. And I think that truthfully, we've seen these cycles for years, and anglers will talk about, how a fishery cycles or a fishery turns off for, several years, and all of a sudden it gets better again. I think that the science is catching up to what anglers have always perceived, in the fact that we manipulate the population a little bit, but it's maybe that we didn't realize that delayed mortality is as strong as it was, in that population shift.
Well, I think the eye test is what a lot of us have gone on, and we tend to weigh our fish. We put them in a release boat, and they're swimming up right at that point, and we think, well, we've done a great thing, but there's more to the story, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at the whole process. The capture of a fish. We know that, through blood test and different modeling, we know that that's a stressful event, that takes a recovery period for those fish. Um, in most situations, when water temperature is cool, oxygen is abundant, those fish recover very quickly. If you did a catch and release, they would swim off immediately. If you put them in the live well, they would be fine for an 8-hour day and go through a weigh-in. When that fish is either hooked in a difficult location or maybe can't handle the stress, and that could be because of temperature, oxygen, respiration, so many things, then that fish becomes stressed in the box. And then you bring 4 other fish with it, and that fish can stress those fish. They can deteriorate water quality. We don't talk enough about the fact that fish respiration is the uptake of oxygen through the gill and the release of waste gases like ammonia out of the gill. And so in your live well, all the time, the fish are consuming oxygen, but they're releasing ammonia and they're releasing these waste gases. And so the water quality is deteriorating over time. So running your bilge pump, or running your pump, recirculating pump, and bringing in fresh water periodically, like those things have always been the solution. In summertime events, cooling water temperature by 5 to 10 degrees has been a solution. But the truth is, and when we take Major League Fishing as the example, is we need to continue to evolve and allow technology to let us have a competitive event that we can trust, that is the catch, weigh, and release format, if we want to continue to have fisheries that are thriving. And I mean thriving by allowing those young, fast-growing individuals to stay in the genetic pool and do what they're supposed to do, which is become the majority of the population.
I'm Keith Neiswanger. This is the Bass Tour Anglers podcast. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you'd like to reach us, please send us a direct message on Instagram at Bass Tour Anglers Podcast. Take care. Be safe. We'll talk to you next time.